Good evening, I'm Hafiz Marzukhi. Our top stories for tonight. From best friend to harsh critic, billionaire Elon Musk slams Trump's tax bill. And the latest US court ruling casts doubts on Trump's trade leverage. That's coming up on AWANI International. Tech billionaire Elon Musk is urging US citizens to pressure lawmakers to vote down President Donald Trump's key tax and spending bill. He warns that the measure will increase the deficit and further accelerate national debt. Musk recently stepped down as the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, where he was tasked with federal cost-cutting efforts. He has criticized what Trump calls the Big Beautiful Bill for raising the debt ceiling without implementing sufficient spending cuts. Describing the plan as a disgusting abomination, he warned lawmakers they could face backlash in the 2026 midterm elections if they threw their support behind it. While Trump has not directly responded, House Speaker Mike Johnson said the president was not delighted over the Tesla founder's public campaign. The legislation had passed the House in May by a narrow margin, but now faces resistance in the Senate, including from members of the Republican Party.
Hi, everyone.
A court ruling that halted the Trump administration's tariffs has thrown a key element of the US trade strategy into a legal limbo. Experts warn that the drawn-out appeals process will harm the country's business environment. On May 28, the US Trade Court ruled that the Trump administration's wide-ranging tariffs imposed under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act are unlawful. The decision came after a number of lawsuits arguing Trump has overstepped his authority on imposing across-the-board duties on imports. Although the US and China have agreed to lift some tariffs for 90 days, but experts say that's likely too short for the courts to make a final decision. In last week's ruling, a panel of 3 judges halted fentanyl-related tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China, as well as the worldwide retaliatory tariffs announced in April. The complaint lodged by a group of small businesses argued that the act does not authorize the US president to impose across-the-board tariffs or authorize tariffs at all. We'll go for a short break. Don't go anywhere.
Jiwa SME Astro AWANI kembali ke Ipoh. Ayo koma jumpa teman di Aeon Mall Kinta City pada 28 dan 29 Jun. Naik taraf perniagaan anda dalam dunia SME bersama penaja utama Unify Business serta rakan strategik kami. Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
US President Donald Trump signed a proclamation banning the nationals of 12 countries from entering the United States. According to him, the move was needed to protect against what he called as foreign terrorists and other security threats.
The countries affected are Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. The entry of people from 7 other countries, Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela will be partially restricted. He added that the list is subject to revision based on whether material improvements are made, and likewise, new countries can be added as threats emerge around the world. The proclamation is effective on Monday, June 9th at 12:01 a.m. EDT. Visas issued before that date will not be revoked, the order said.
Donald Trump has also suspended the entry of foreign students at Harvard University for an initial 6-month period. The US president issued the proclamation on Wednesday, citing national security concerns and describing the entry of foreign students as detrimental to US interests.
The suspension applies to all foreign students seeking to study or participate in exchange programs at the institution. The order also directs the Secretary of State to consider revoking existing visas of international students currently enrolled at the university. Harvard responded by calling the order retaliatory, adding that it would continue to protect its international students. Trump's latest move is part of an ongoing legal dispute with Harvard, which has rejected a series of demands from the White House in April. The Trump administration has frozen billions of dollars of federal funding, accusing the institution of failing to address anti-Semitism on campus. Just last week, a federal judge blocked the Department of Homeland Security from banning international students at Harvard. The university currently enrolls nearly 7,000 foreign students for the 2024 to 2025 academic year, making up 27% of its student body.
Vladimir Putin says Moscow will have to respond to Ukraine's drone strikes on Russian air bases over the weekend. Speaking after a phone call with the Russian President, Donald Trump warns that the 75-minute conversation will not yield an immediate end to the war in Ukraine.
Trump, who announced the call in a post on Truth Social, made no mention of applying pressure on the Russian leader to agree to a ceasefire. Russian officials declined to confirm Trump's statement, but Moscow had earlier said that military options were on the table for its response. Meanwhile, Russian presidential aide Yuri Ushakov said Trump had told Putin in the call that the US was not warned of the attack in advance. Trump had previously set a 2-week deadline for Putin to determine if the latter was serious about negotiating a ceasefire. The call comes days after a second round of direct peace talks between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul, which ended without a major breakthrough, although both sides did agree to a prisoner swap.
Israel has continued to obstruct the humanitarian work of the United Nations in the Gaza Strip. Spokesperson for the Secretary-General of the United Nations, Stefan Dujarric, says that the UN and its partners continue to send supplies to Kerem Shalom crossing, where Israeli authorities scan them before they can enter Gaza.
We and our partners continue to send supplies to Kerem Shalom crossing, where Israeli authorities scan them before they can enter Gaza. For today, we submitted over 130 pre-cleared truckloads for a second and final Israeli clearance, but only 50 of them, which were carrying flour, were approved to enter the Israeli side of the Kerem Shalom crossing.
On Tuesday alone, 6 out of 13 UN aid shipment requests were denied, including the urgently needed fuel. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs warned that without immediate access to fuel, UN's essential services in Gaza could be forced to shut down.
China's southwestern province of Sichuan is proposing to extend marriage leave up to 25 days and maternity leave to 150 days. Health authorities say this is to create a fertility-friendly society and boost the country's population.
Sichuan's Health Commission is currently seeking public opinion and comments until June 30th on the proposal. The province has a population of 84 million, more than most countries including the UK and Germany. The proposal would extend marriage leave by 400% from the 5 days currently offered and more than double the existing 60-day maternity leave period. Sichuan also plans to extend paternity leave from 20 to 30 days to advocate for shared parental responsibility in raising children. China's population fell for a third consecutive year in 2024 as the world's second largest economy struggles to boost birth rates following its one-child policy. The high cost of children and education, along with a slowing economy and uncertainty in the job market, have discouraged many young Chinese from getting married and starting a family.
Japan is set to propose strengthening cooperation with the US on rare earth supply chains in upcoming tariff talks, with recent export restrictions by China in mind. This is according to a report by the Nikkei Business Daily.
Japan's chief tariff negotiator, Ryosei Akazawa, is heading to Washington for a fifth round of talks with U.S. counterparts, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. According to Japan's Jiji Press, the United States has shown flexibility in reducing the currently suspended additional 14% reciprocal tariffs imposed on Japanese goods. Back in April, President Donald Trump announced a 24% tariff on Japanese exports to the US. However, like many of his levies, he put it on hold until early July to allow time for negotiations. Meanwhile, a 10% universal rate remains in place. Japan has been urging the US to review its tariff policies, including the 25% import levies on Japan-made vehicles. Car manufacturing is Japan's biggest industry.
As the US scales back funding under its latest federal budget, cancelling high-profile missions and shuttering NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, other countries are stepping up to fill the gap. Australia is positioning itself as an emerging leader in space exploration with ambitions to drive innovation in the field. Astro AWANI correspondent Fei Kwan reports more on this from Adelaide.
Australia has long played a supportive role in global space exploration, but now there's growing ambition to lead. Here at the Andy Thomas Centre for Space Resources at the University of Adelaide, cutting-edge technology is being developed for construction on the moon and for long-term human habitation in space. And with Australia planning to send a rover to the moon, hopefully by 2029, I speak to Professor Anna Wyatt, Director of Astronaut Autonomy teaming over here, on what sets Australia apart in the ever-evolving space race.
So Australia has obviously a lot of space, space. It has a lot of clear skies as well, and hopefully a very strong innovation ecosystem. Adelaide University is a leader in this area with the Andy Thomas Centre for Space Resources. We're focusing on deep space habitation, but we're also linked into the ecosystem in South Australia and helping to grow the ecosystem in Australia more broadly as well. So that's about partnering with international partners like NASA and JAXA and the ESA, but also partnering with local companies like Neumann Space and ELO2 for the rover as well. So we have great talent in terms of our students. We have amazing facilities here that are world leading in terms of analogue facilities. And we also have many launch sites in Australia, lots of satellite launch sites, and also with Gilmore Space, hopefully our first shuttle launch very, very soon. So I think Australia now has the opportunity to take its place as truly being a space nation, and not only just being a participant in a collaborator with other countries, but to become a leader.
Anna outlined how experts from different disciplines were collaborating to turn deep space exploration into a reality for the near future.
The Andy Thomas Centre for Space Resources is focused on long-term deep space habitation. And what that means is that we're a multidisciplinary group that's interested in understanding how you prepare roads, how you develop the materials that you need to prepare roads and also habitats for humans. But we also see humans as a central part of this ecosystem. So we need habitats that can house the humans. We also need robots that will work with the humans. So then we need to also understand astronaut autonomy teaming to understand how they'll work together. And we also have members who work on the regulation aspects of this. So we have a professor of space law, and we have architects, engineers, experts in AI and robotics, as well as civil engineers working together.
That report wraps up AWANI International tonight. Stay tuned for our reports on the rivalries, strategies, and the shifts behind the power affairs driving the new global order. Visit international.astroawani.com for more. Be sure to follow our social media accounts @PowerAffairs. That is all for now. I'm Hafiz Marzukhi. Good night.